Welcome back to another episode of Voice for Good. My name is Elliot K, and I am your host, your presenter, your light, your tree. No, that's a terrible intro, but you know what? I'm going with it anyway because we do one show. I'm not anyone's tree, by the way, and I don't even know where that came from. But today I have a legend, and this is just the season of legends, and this whole season is all about the talk that made you. And the guy I'm interviewing today, I've had the opportunity to be interviewed on his podcast, to work with him and to see his work firsthand. And as I always say, if you want to know more about him, read the bio. But Jason Graystone is just a legend in his own right. He is a guy that to me epitomizes someone who's using their voice for good, someone that's massively successful. I mean, this is a guest, by the way, Jason, hasn't let his ego get in the way. No, I know you haven't let your ego get in the way. If anything, you're a very down to earth and grounded person. You educate people on the market, you educate people on wealth creation, and it's always free, which is also the name of your podcast. We'll talk about that a bit later. Thank you for coming on Voice for Good. First of all, how are you doing today in these crazy times we're living in?
Still crazy. Thanks for having us on. Yeah, so it's an honor to be on the podcast. It's such a great message that you're putting out.
Thank you. So, Jason, this season has all been about the talk that made you. So what was the talk that made you?
Well, funnily enough, it's kind of been, the talk that made me was a talk that I really didn't want to do. So I was, when I became financially independent, I was behind the scenes. I was trading, I was investing, I was building businesses. And at the point where I no longer kind of required to have an active income, where I was kind of exchanging time for money, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I decided that I did need to I'd learned a lot in that journey, you know, and I decided that more people need to hear the truth about, or at least hear what I'd found, because I see a lot of, with wealth creation and all that kind of stuff, it's a very delicate subject matter out there in terms of ethics and and you know, showmanship, and I'd kind of swallowed the whole lot, you know, and I found that they were all kind of partial strategies. They're all incomplete, and they all needed each other. There was certain things that needed to be put together in order to sustainably create a plan for financial freedom. And I considered myself someone who had done it in a pretty efficient manner, and I thought more people need to hear about this.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, no one really knew. Well, no one knew who I was. I was just a trader who, you know, just sitting at home trading. And at the time, I was reading a book by someone you know, Daniel Priestley.
Never heard of him. Who is this Daniel you're talking about? Never heard of him. No, of course, Daniel, author of Key Person of Influence, oversubscribed. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Which one of them were you reading?
I was reading Key Person of Influence. It had just come out. It was, you know, it was like 10 years ago now. And I very quickly became close to him. I was exchanging messages and kind of meeting up, going to events and stuff. Yeah, stalking a little bit. But he introduced me to a couple of people. One was Dr. John DeMartini, whose work I've studied. You know, he was kind of in charge of managing DeMartini over here. He had exclusive rights.
A long time ago. It's more than years ago.
Right. And then the other guy he mentioned was a guy called Stuart Wilde. And Stuart Wilde he's dead now, but he was a guy who used to go around doing these public talks and speaks, and he had all these courses and kind of things like that. And I watched one of the videos after Dan mentioned his name, and he said something that stuck with me. And it was about how to do business, and it was about how to show up, you know, how to not compete and scratch and claw and fight for business. And he spoke in these words of being more life force, being more energy, being more power, getting up and sharing value to the world. And when you do that, people magnetize to you. And something really resonated with me when I saw that video. Wow. And I thought, this is it. I've got to actually speak to the world, and that means I've got to get on camera or do something. You know, I'd never done that before.
Oh, yeah.
So I sat down. I bought a camera. I sat in my office in my house that I'd just moved into, and I had some bullet points written down, and my son was next to me, and I said, right, that's it. I put a shirt on, you know, first time I'd got dressed properly in like a couple of years. And then I sat on the chair, and it took me about 20 minutes or half an hour just to spit out like a 2-minute sentence or a paragraph. And I was fearful. I kept mumbling my words. I kept like, I was going to give up. I thought this, you know, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I had light on me. I had a camera in me. I'd never had that before. And
Wetting.
it just took me so long to get this thing together. And then when it went out I actually published it. We edited it and published it in November 2015. It's like the first video on my YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
And it's still there. But just the B-roll of that video,
Yes.
if you saw what went into it, you'd think, geez, you know, this guy's never going to be speaking on podcasts or stages or anything like that. But because I'd done it and I'd learned how hard it was, I realized that actually it can only get better from there, you know, and you can only get better. You can't get worse. So
some people I've worked with it can get worse, but yes, most people get better. Well, actually, not people I work with, in fairness, but yes,
of course.
But most people, yeah, it's a stepping stone, and it's the whole. Your first is the worst, and then you improve from there.
Absolutely, but what I found from that is people were just magnetized. People were resonating with me and the messages that I was putting out. So I did it more and more and more. But if I hadn't got behind the camera and decided to do that one time, I don't think I'd have the life I have now, to be honest with you. Not right now, not in a short space of time anyway.
Yeah, I didn't realize it's only 5 years ago. I thought you were going, you know, in terms of your social media presence. No. I thought you'd been going around for a bit longer than that.
No, 5 years.
So tell me, like, how many people, in your opinion, miss out on just taking that one step from your experience and just won't take that one step towards something?
I would say most people miss out on it because most people don't want to do it. You know, I heard that people would rather die than public speak, right?
Yeah, I've always had an issue with that because, you know, death is pretty permanent. Like, I'd rather be able to, like, give it another go. I'd rather be able to get it wrong 1,000 times and be alive than dead. So it's funny because, you know, Forbes actually did a survey, and it's only like 70% of people that had taken public speaking training attribute the growth of their career and their businesses to. 20% said they would do everything not to do it, including losing respect. But there was 10% that didn't even make it onto the survey. And I want to know what that 10% said, that they don't even make it into the survey.
Wow.
So I'm not sure I'd rather be dead than public speaking, but I know people feel that way. Yes.
Yeah. But when I look at just, I mean, I'm a trader and an investor, and I study the kind of collective market mind, the mass mind. And I can see a visual representation of human psychology every day when I look at those charts. And, you know, the fact that so few are able to consistently make profits out of a market like that, or out of the markets, just says to me that most people are fearful. Most people can't handle the emotional oscillations. And when I kind of compare that to speaking, I can understand why people are fearful, but I also understand that you can't really be fearful of something that you've never done. It's not real. You can't fear the unknown. That's impossible, because a fear is literally imagination of something that's happened to you in the past, right? So if you've got a fear of speaking, well, you don't fear going and speak to your wife or your husband or your kids, right? So you haven't got a fear. But you haven't got a fear of speaking, and you can speak to yourself in your head, right? So it's not speaking you've got a fear of, it's something related to something that's happened to you maybe in the past that you've really still hung up about, and and you haven't kind of dealt with and seen the benefits to whatever happened to you. So like it could be being shown up or messing up your words, and that might go back to something that happened in school or something, where the teacher showed you up, because I know the teacher showed me up in school when with my English sats. And that was something that I've had in my mind. I'm writing a book at the moment, and that is literally something that crops up. Something where he says, you won't do well if you don't do well in this class, and that crops up. If you don't go and sort that out and clear it away, them things keep you back. And I think the reason people don't speak is due to fear, but just understand that it's a fear that's related to something that's, you can pinpoint whatever that is and get rid of it. There's no fear of the unknown.
Yeah, and it's valid, right? Your fear is valid. Let's not say, oh, it's false evidence of being real.
Oh,
I get that saying, because but it's if you're afraid of judgment, or you're afraid of getting it wrong, or you're afraid that you'll get found out, imposter syndrome as it's known, that's very real to that person. And I think it's about what you do to overcome that. It's not allowing that to get in the way, because obviously if we always allow that, then people never take that first step. Yeah. So let's rewind that a little bit. So for you, the talk that made you was really sitting down and doing that video. It's almost like your own kind of like stepping stone is what kind of launched you. And I think what's really important for the listeners to understand, it hasn't been an overnight thing, has it, Jason? It's not like you did that video, you went viral, it had cats in it and a baby and millions of views, right? It's taken time. I mean, I've seen you, in the last, 18 months since I've known you, or 2 years, it's grown, but it certainly didn't happen quickly, did it?
No, absolutely not. And that really was a turning point talk, because when I think of it, I could have either just gone, you know what, that'll do for YouTube, because all I was doing was introducing like a live trading room that I was running at the time. And I could have just stopped there. I could have just said, you know what, that's it. But I didn't. And I kept, trying to write down talks and do them on camera and get better and better and make the editing a bit better. And as I remained consistent, I saw that people were showing up. More and more people were showing up, and they were kind of asking me if I had anything to sell, and it was crazy because I didn't really have anything to sell. So they were like, it was almost like they're trying to get closer and closer and closer to you. And I just thought of that Stuart Wilde video, and I thought, wow, it really does work. It really does work that way, and you become this kind of authority, or this thought leader, and people just resonate with your message, and they want to get closer and closer to you without having to try and scratch and claw and compete and make sales and all that kind of stuff. It was very, very bizarre. One of the things that I did pay attention to, though, was keeping a strong message and not trying to please everyone. Okay. So if you go and watch all of my videos, they're very, very polarizing. They're polarizing to my way of thinking. And if you don't think the way I think, or you don't really agree with what I'm saying, then you'll switch off, you'll go elsewhere. But I won't change my message to kind of let's try and not upset everyone just for the sake of not getting any bad comments and things like that. I stayed very true to the message. And
well, in the day of influencer, that's what people want, right? They don't want vanilla, they don't want wishy-washy. No, they want people who generally have an opinion, and it's, you either like me or not, but people tend to really like that approach. So for you, as this podcast is all about voice for good, how hard is it to be a voice for good in an industry not in the trading world has its own kind of thing going on, but you do run wealth management, like wealth growth trainings and investment trainings. So how hard is it for you to be the light, to be a voice for good in an industry that's pretty tarnished, pretty dark? Not the industry itself, sorry, the people. I rephrase that. The people that are selling courses, we hear about scams all the time. All you need to do is like, CoffeeZilla on YouTube. Like, he's great. And I always watch his videos because he's always exposing a lot of the scammers. Yeah. How hard is it for you to kind of stay the light? I mean, I don't mean any like utopic, godly way. Yeah. How hard is it for you?
I think as we grow and as we get more of a following, I think it's going to be more challenging. But I think until this point, I mean, you type in my name into Instagram and you'll see a load of fake accounts
Yeah,
there,
that
right?
means
So
real fame, right? That means you made it.
it means that I'm doing something right, but it also means that I'm true. I'm ahead of them, right? I'm ahead of the game. I mean, it's very
Yeah.
unsustainable to go and scam people. You'll get humbled eventually, and I think going back to my last point about being authentic and being really true and having a message that's so kind of raw and real, almost refreshing, almost shockingly honest, where you're almost going against what all the other people are saying. I think that helps you stand out, and that's essentially what I've done. I've basically said, look, everyone was telling people that trading was real, like was easy and all this. I turned around and said
You
it's
just
the
need to
hardest
do it
thing.
for 7 minutes a day, right?
Yeah, I turned around and said it's the hardest thing you can possibly learn. It's the hardest thing. It's the most, it's the most difficult self-discovery process that you'll ever have to endure. And people resonated with it. They were like, wow, I want to hear more about that. I want to hear more, because you're standing out from all the people that are telling me that it's easy and got the Lambo. And what you're doing is you're confirming people's suspicions, which builds immediate trust.
Yeah.
If people have got a suspicion, a sneaky suspicion of something, and they're like, oh, it seems too good to be true, and you come along and just blast them out of the water and confirm them suspicions, they will be polarized to you. They'll be they'll trust you. And that's essentially what I've done from day one. Just give people the truth.
Brilliant. So would you say at times you feel that you have to work that extra hard because people are so often burnt in your space?
Do you know what? I don't feel like I have to work hard, and I think that comes down to congruency. Because when
Yes.
you live and breathe it, it's not effort. I wake up every day wanting to look at the markets and wanting to, broaden my knowledge on the markets and look at trading charts and teach this stuff. Whereas the
Yeah.
people who are out there who are trying to get a quick buck, they're not really inspired from within to go and do it. So it's effort for them,
Yeah.
So that's how I see myself kind of ahead of those guys, because I don't require any external motivation to do it. So it's something I naturally want to do. So all I have to do is wake up every day, whereas they have to think about how they're going to attack this, how they're going to attack that, how they're going to kind of compete or funnel hack or scam and all this kind of stuff. And I don't do any of that. I just share my messages and hang up. Yeah.
Brilliant. And how much does so when you introduce the speaking aspect, the YouTube, the podcasting, the speaking, because I guess
Yep.
you also do public speaking.
Yep.
How much does fear play a part, or did play the part when you got going?
Yeah, I can remember one. I've always had. By the time I got out onto a stage, I'd probably had two, maybe 3 years of YouTube experience. So my YouTube was pretty polished by the time I decided to step on a stage. Since then, I've spoken on some of the biggest investment stages in the world, Las Vegas and, all over the place, Italy.
Yeah, baby.
And so it's been really amazing. There was one time, I've always had nerves to a degree before you go on, because you want to make sure that you get your points across and everything. But there was one particular stage where I did literally consider not going on. I considered, I considered not going on, and I did in the end. I went on, but the reason was it was imposter syndrome creeping in a little bit, and it was like, and what I realized was imposter syndrome is like, it's you looking up to someone in the audience. It's not actually. It's not a fear of failing. It's because if you went and done a talk to some nursery children, you'd have no problem, right? But if you go and do a talk to NASA scientists,
Yeah, gosh.
you might have a little bit. Well, who am I to advise them?
Right.
And that crept in a little bit. So I just kind of took my time to figure out why I was feeling that way. And then I thought, you know what? Look, these are my thoughts. I don't profess to have invented anything. I've just learned a lot of stuff, and I've formed a synthesis of the information that I've learned, and I'm sharing that message. And I went out and did it. But I get why people have imposter syndrome, but
Yes.
thinking you're not, who am I to kind of do this? But the truth is, it's one person in the audience, not hundreds. It's every single one of those audience members are receiving your message individually, and
Yeah.
they're all going to take it a different way. They've all got a different image of who you are, a different perception of who you are as a person, and they'll all take what they want from it. And when you look at it like that, you kind of think, oh, this is much easier because I'm just talking to one person. And that helps me out.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I say to a lot of people when I work with them, or they have imposter syndrome, or a bit like you, they're going on a big stage, like, who am I? And can't believe I'm here. It's like, well, you got to remember that out of the hundreds of potential speakers they could have put in that slot, they chose you. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And that's something to remind
Yeah.
yourself, whoever's going on. It's like, no, there's a reason why they've asked me. There's a reason why my picture's on the program, and, they've
Yep.
given me this slot. And that's something to remind everybody, because like you said, some people will love you, some people will hate you, most people will land in the middle. But as long, again, and it's the whole, and you and I will know this, it's the whole shining the light on a worthy cause and not making about you. And I find the people that tend to suffer a lot of the imposter syndrome is because they're making about them and not a message that's bigger than them, or shining light on a cause that's greater than them. Even recently, I was working with this young lady, and she talks about taboo topic. That's our whole thing, is taboo topics. And she's like, but I'm really, problem with confidence, nervous imposter syndrome. I'm like, well, first of all, if it's about the taboo topics and not about you, and you shining the light on talking about things we shouldn't talk about or aren't talked about, then it's about that. So you need to park yourself. And you can see instantly everything changed. She's like, oh yeah, that's right. And this confidence in her group, because it's not about her.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really, really important there. So for anyone out there who's listening to this, and they think about taking that first step, or maybe they're already very successful like yourself, as they're and they want to add speaking to it, what would you say to them? Whether it be video, podcasts, or everything that you need to do these days, what would be your advice to them?
Funnily enough, I mean, what you just mentioned about having a bigger cause, I think that's really important, because when you've got a bigger meaning to what your message and what impact that's going to have, and you can work out kind of, in 2.5 generations, if I carry on at this rate, I could reach, 2 billion people, or, have something big to go for. What that does is allow you to, what you just said is think about just, you think about the long term. So I always liken it to, like, if you was in a tractor and you was kind of mowing a crop, if you look straight ahead, you're going to get some straight lines. But if you look down at the floor, you're going to go all over the place, and you'll get dragged around from, until you get there. And by the time you get there, it's going to be a right mess. Having something bigger and a cause beyond yourself is something that helps you not worry about any kind of oscillations along the way. It's like you just remain focused. So that's really important. Another thing is just, like, no one's going to see you on your phone if you're just practicing, or in the mirror. I did that many times. The amount of B-roll that I've got is probably 50 times what's actually out there. And, only really just this year, I've kind of off the cuff been a one-hit wonder, if you like. But up until this year, I mean, that's 4 years of still messing up. And so no one's going to see that, so just practice. And what my biggest bit of advice is, literally, it doesn't have to be perfect. People just love authenticity these days. There's so much noise, and these days people's bullshit meter is so attuned to anything. The best thing you can do is just not delete out the ums, or the bits where you mess up. Just keep it in. Just be really, really authentic, and don't try and please everyone and be, oh, hello, just really have conviction in your message and put it out there. Just there you go. And you'll get an audience, you'll get some fans.
And it will take time, right?
And it will take time, and consistency for sure. You can spend 5 years doing YouTube and get 10 subscribers, or you can spend 5 years and get 60,000 subscribers. And the difference between the two is consistency. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter if it's once a week or once a day or once a month, but just make sure it's bang, bang, bang consistent. People build trust for you that way.
Yeah, speaking of YouTube, I've got my own challenge of doing 100 videos by December. I've got 82 left. So
Wow.
we're
Yeah, you
doing
better
okay.
get moving.
Yeah, well, I tend to like you say, bang them out. We've just launched a new channel, Speak to Influence, and I'm well aware that YouTube just loves your and to get any recognition. I mean, you were kind of at the era where it still was a bit nicer. Now to relaunch and restart, that you've got to just like 80% of attention's got to go on, if not 90. So 82 left. I'll keep you posted on my 100 challenge, and maybe we can launch a 100 YouTube challenge in your group, right?
Oh,
I love the last challenge we did, but I don't know if they're ready for 100 videos.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of the most powerful engagement I've ever seen on my channel is whenever I've done like a vlog, a proper vlog, like commit to a vlog, and again, it's a level of transparency into your life where people just build trust for you.
Yeah,
I am a believer that if you wouldn't happily allow a camera crew into your house 24/7, then you've got some skeletons and you've got something that you wouldn't necessarily want people to see. Well, then you're going to hide that side of yourself forever, and you'll limit yourself. So whenever I've done the more personal stuff on YouTube, I've found that that's had far more engagement than a structured kind of corporate video. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So be authentic, be congruent, be consistent, be real. Say what you got to say. Don't be vanilla.
Have a big cause.
Have a big cause. I think there's some fantastic messages to anybody listening, from Jason today, and generally about getting going, overcoming fear. We all have fears when we get going, and even when we go up to another level, other fears creep in. But it's about addressing it. Sometimes about taking that first step, which will open up many, many other avenues. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Jason. Jason, how can people connect with you, find out about you, hear about you?
Yeah, the best way that you can connect or kind of hear more from me is my podcast, the Always Free podcast. It's called Always Free on iTunes. You can get it on all the platforms. And if you want to get me on social, it's J_Graystone on Instagram, or Jason Graystone on any of the others.
With a tick by it, because there's so many dodgy people.
Not yet. I haven't got a tick yet.
You haven't a tick. They haven't even
they won't. There's no human beings at Instagram.
Oh no! So how would people know it's you?
J_Graystone. That is it.
That's the one.
Like,
that's
there's about, at the time of this recording, there's about 19,000 followers. So
I see. That's how I
tend to have that much.
Brilliant, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on Voice for Good. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to getting it out there and sharing with the world. And for the rest of you, we're almost at the end of this season. So I've saved the best for last, of course. We're coming to an end. And always remember, be seen, be heard, and always use your voice for good. Till the next episode, see you soon.